from being miserable running a six-lawyer criminal defense law firm to being super happy, working 3 days a week, running a 25-person personal injury law firm. Jordan Ostroff has had quite a journey over the last 10 years. Listen how he transitioned. It's not so much about switching a practice area as it was about switching the mindset, delegating most of the work that he did when he was running his criminal defense law firm, and just creating a beautiful lifestyle for himself, for his family, feeling really successful and doing only the things that he loves. Listen to his story, how he did it, pick up the clues, and maybe some of the ideas will rub off on you and you'll use them in your business to create a much more beautiful law firm, or a law firm that you actually love, which also happens to be the title of his book. Check out the episode. You will absolutely love it. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast, and I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel, and the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to Grow Law Podcast. I have an awesome guest with me here today. Mr. Ostroff is a happy lawyer. Jordan Ostroff, man, you have been a prosecutor for 3 years, a law firm owner now for the past 10 years, a recovering lawyer, more than a recovering lawyer, for well over 5 years now, as you're true a CEO of your law firm where you get to work only 3 days a week. It's a multi-million-dollar law firm, and you just super happy, and you're like Hawaiian shirt. You just look healthy, like you look super healthy, which is amazing. Tell the people who are listening to this, who may be stuck in their office, not feeling so happy about their business and possibly not feeling so happy about their life, share the journey and how you got to the point where you are wearing a Hawaiian shirt, working 3 days a week and making a ton of money.
Sure. I love James Clear, Atomic Habits. I think it's probably the greatest book of change in life of all time. He has this quote: "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." And that's, if you take nothing else away from this, I want to leave you with that. Like, you are in the place that you are as a product of the systems you already have. And if you tell me I don't have systems, you do. They're just not intentional. They're not specific. They're not written down. They're not consistently followed, those kind of things. And that was me. So the biggest thing that I can tell you is, I swear to you, I changed. It changed my life. You can do it as well. It is not the extent of anything I have special. I have the ability to make things really simple, and I'm stubborn as all hell. So as long as I point that at the right thing, I will stubborn my way through any wall, and I can simplify what I need when I delegate it to other people. Those are probably my only two superpowers.
These are awesome superpowers. Jordan, if you don't mind, repeat that quote, because I'm sure some people right now are sitting there on Spotify and they're like, I need to go back 40 seconds to listen to it again. It's so powerful.
You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Awesome. Okay. So your journey.
Yeah. How far back do we want to go?
So you're a prosecutor, circa 2012, you're a prosecutor?
Prosecuting from 12 for about to 15.
Okay. And then?
And then so the next promotion would have been to sex crimes, and I applied for it, and they're like, hey, you didn't get it. And I immediately felt super happy. They're like, but we're going to give you the next one. And my heart fell through my body. And I was like, I just realized I don't want it. And they like looked at me. I was like, I swear to you, when you said I didn't get it, I do not realize why. It was so clear to me. I was so happy when you said no. and I was terrified when you said yes on the next one. So I knew my days were numbered, and so I put in notice. I don't know, like the next week, and started my own firm because I did
Why
not
didn't
want
you
that.
want it? Why didn't you want it?
I thought I did until that moment. I don't know. I
Mm,
don't know why. I guess I have a lot of friends that had that position and didn't like it. Like you are prosecuting all sex crimes. That would have been my next promotion. So you're talking to, parents and young children and stuff about like some of these terrible things. Maybe that was sitting in me emotionally.
hmm.
I don't know. I really thought I wanted that promotion and to be a lifelong prosecutor until that exact moment. And I have never had that sort of clarity in my life than in
Wow,
those like 5 seconds of abject happiness to abject terror.
that's awesome. And then what happens?
And then, so my wife was a PD. We actually met in court on opposite sides, although I swear to you, we never had a specific case in common. We never actually competed against each other. I would have lost even had I have won. And she was like, yeah, you can open up your own firm. And thankfully, like I came to Orlando, went to the University of Central Florida in Orlando. I stayed to go to law school at Barry in Orlando. I was a prosecutor in Orlando. So by the time I left, I'd been in town for, almost 10 years. I sat down with anybody who would give me any advice. Am I stupid to do this? What do you recommend for office space? How do we start? And I found somebody, Corey Cohen, who's still in town, great guy, was like, I've got an extra office. I'll give you some of the cases I don't want in some of these farther away counties. I'll charge you lower for office space as long as, you'll take these cases. And it was awesome. I have not looked back.
So that was the start of your own law firm.
That was the start. That was literally, Corey was in trial against somebody in my division on my last day, and I was like, it'd be really funny. I should sit second chair with them on Monday, and then Tuesday I have my own firm. I could sit with Corey on the defense side, and then obviously you can't actually do that, but it was interesting happenstance.
Wow. Okay. So you start practicing law in your own law firm, and then what?
And then, so my wife gave me a ton of info, as did a bunch of other criminal defense attorneys in town. And honestly, like I said, I had been in town for 9 years. I knew people. She knew people. It went like weirdly well. We generated a lot of cases from referrals, from people, from other lawyers, from, colleagues of mine at the different schools in town. And so I was like, this is great. I'm going to hire a marketing company. And next thing you know, I'm going to be the most successful criminal defense attorney in the entire area. And it did not go that way.
And you and your wife already worked together then.
Well, so she actually at that point was teaching civics because she had this whole experience in juvenile court where she told this like 14-year-old that he was getting tried for murder and could go to prison for life because of him and some buddies. His buddies, they broke into somebody's house, and then his buddies like ended up killing this invalid, and the guy got charged under felony murder rule. And I think it was really terrible. But like her takeaway from this was this kid never had a chance. Like there was no positive role model in his life. And so she was like, hey, how do you get to kids before they're in the criminal justice system? And ended up going into teaching. Come to find out that's probably still not early enough, at least for middle school. And so she did that for like the first 7 months that I had the firm, just to make sure we were okay financially. But then before the end of the next school year, she was working at the firm 100% as well.
Got it. And so you hire a marketing company or marketing companies, and how does that work out?
It did not. So it went so poorly. And I want to be very clear. This is not me calling out any of the companies by any means. Sasha and I talked about this briefly beforehand. The companies didn't set the right expectation with me. I didn't have the right systems in place to support it. I wasn't willing to put in the amount of money needed. I wasn't willing to last the amount of time that they wanted, so like 3 months into $1,000 a month SEO campaign that would have gone nowhere because it needed to be $10,000 a month and I needed to commit for 2 years. Like I was a barracuda chasing shiny objects. And so none of it stuck. Like it was so bad.
Got it. And this is around the point where your wife tells you that you're going to have a baby.
So yeah, we opened the firm in 2015. We started trying for a kid in 2016. It took us a year to get pregnant. And like, that's probably related to the fact that I put on 40 pounds when I opened up my firm. We were super stressed out. Like literally she had an appointment booked to make sure that everything was okay. because we had been trying for whatever it was 12, 13 months. They have you get checked out literally like 2 weeks before. She got pregnant. My kid's now 7 years old. It's great. He's wonderful. He is a mini me, which is a positive and negative in so many ways. And during that time, like we grew the firm to, we had 15 people. We had, I think, 4 lawyers who weren't us, 6 lawyers total, support staff. So I was like, look, I'm generating enough business. Like if I get this marketing going, this is going to be great. Like we are growing, we're growing. And then finally, just at the moment that she told me she was pregnant, I had the second great moment of clarity of there's no way I could keep running a firm the way that we've been doing it, because we were miserable. We were working 70, 80 hours a week. We were $200,000 in debt. I was floating stuff on credit cards for, just that. Sasha, as every marketer says, right? If it gets you one case, it pays for itself, right? That times 100 different really cheap efforts that went nowhere.
That's a terrible saying. Terrible saying.
It is.
So, but you were able to feed so many mouths in your firm. How did you accomplish that? Was it all just referrals because people? Yeah, because people. Okay, so you weren't even paying yourselves?
I mean, not a ton.
Not a ton. Yeah.
We were paying very little. But yeah, I mean, it is wild to me that I probably generated 400-ish my first year on just referrals with almost nobody else. I hired help, as soon as I could.
400K,
along those lines. What?
400,000.
Yeah, and put 350 of it back into everything. And it was like, all right, then put it into salaries and put it into marketing. Because I just kept thinking, look, if I can do this on, my first 6 months as a lawyer, like everybody else, if they could do it half as well, if they could do it a tenth as well, if they could do it here, like we'll be a, $5 million firm in 4 years with 10 people, whatever. And it never happened. But again, like I really want to stress it's because I let everybody down. Like I was not a boss. I was not a manager. I was not a CEO. I was this dude who generated business and also lawyered it. And that was the extent of it.
Yeah. Before we hit the record button, we talked about the org chart, and I said, so you didn't really have an org chart, and you said that you did. Tell us about the structure of that org chart, because I love that one.
Yeah, no problem. So I call it the Bullseye org chart. It was me at the center, and everybody's problems like arrows were pointed at me, right? There was no real structure and hierarchy. It was just like, if things go wrong, send it to Jordan, and he'll maybe figure it out. And then I'm sitting there miserable because all I'm hearing is everybody else's problems. Yeah. So, but again, no structure, no CEO, no management, no real business systems. And it is wild to me that we were able to do, 650, something like that with no structure in place. Like please do not take this as a brag. This is, good God, if I had put these things in place from day one, I'd be that much farther off and that much better off now versus having to learn these mistakes, learn these things the hard way.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were in charge of attracting cases. I'm sure you did some of the intake, or did you have other people do intake?
Yeah. I tried to do as much of the sales as I could, but I was also going to court. And so for criminal defense, like you're driving to 2 or 3 courts in a day. So a lot of times it was whoever could take an intake, whoever could get out of court at 10:30 to take an intake call while they were driving 40 minutes back to the office. And so try to prioritize that stuff, but we're at the mercy of constant triage, right? Everything was on fire in the moment. Everything was an emergency. Nobody had the help they needed. And again, I'm blown away that we made it work as long as we did, as well as we did, until realizing how to make it actually work.
Were you in charge of people as well?
Yeah, there was nobody, come to me, come to my wife. There was no management. There was no supervision. There was very little software. There were, I don't know if we had any written systems at any point. Like I look back and I'm just like, hey, former idiot, like how did you not think of these things? But then nobody does until you do.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were in charge of marketing, intake, operations, actually delivering the service, and HR. No one was in charge of management. So management was just not intended to function.
Yes.
And so like everything.
The best, well, so like everybody had cases, we had 5, 6 attorneys depending upon the exact moment. And so at least we were smart enough to be like, hey, you go to Orange County and take everybody's Orange County case. You go to Volusia, you go to Osceola, you go to Seminole. Like at least we could do that.
Mhm.
But I just think like if there had been more structure, it would have been better for myself. It would have been better for all the staff, for the lawyers, for the clients, for like there was no real winner in this situation.
Sure. So you hit that second point of great clarity. Your wife tells you that she's pregnant, and then what happens?
I got really so. Let me back up. Right? I wish I
Uh-huh.
remembered exactly what day. So it's somewhere in the middle of 2017. I really like hot sauce, so my wife takes Louisiana Cristal bottle and makes a fake label for it on like "You're a hot daddy now," right? Like so she goes above it, and I'm like, I don't know what I was putting it on, some food, and I look at it, I'm like, what's wrong with this label? And then like it clicks. Oh my
Uh-huh.
God, I'm crying, I'm super happy, and then 10 seconds later, just the most existential dread of
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, we already don't have a life, we already don't have much money, we're massively in debt, and now someone's going to hand us a baby, right? Like it's a dumpster fire while you're drowning, and now like you are responsible for this other life, and it broke me. And so we looked at like what could we do, and it ended up becoming she was going to focus on being a great lawyer, become managing partner. I was going to focus on the marketing and the business stuff, become the CEO and CMO. We were going to cut our entire digital marketing budget. And I was like, look, at the very least, if fewer cases come in, I'll have more time with our child and more time to work on all these things. And if they don't come in, we'll save $135,000, $133,000, whatever it was.
That's what
Next
you were
year,
spending on marketing at the time.
yeah, so like a little
S-
whatever that is,
It's a
12,000 a
very,
month,
very
something.
substantial budget for a firm that does $650,000 in revenue. It's like 20% of your revenue.
Yeah. Well, and that was like so I'd send mailers for 6 months and then those wouldn't work out as well. And then I would hire a company to do SEO for 3 to 6 months and that wouldn't see the results we were looking for. And then at one point I was text messaging people in compliance with the FCC laws
Of
and the
course.
bar rules and all that stuff, which I had to explain to people like a bunch of times. Just like didn't stick with anything. And at the end of
Hmm.
the day, that next year my firm made $5,000 less, saving $135,000, not because the marketing was that bad, but because thankfully, knock on wood, we were doing such a good job on the cases that we were getting referrals from clients, from other attorneys. Like that was the thing that worked for us that kept us going as
Hmm.
I blew all this money trying to add some sort of consistent digital strategy that just never panned out for us, not realizing until later if we had a consistent intake system, if we had an ideal client in mind, if we had,
Yeah.
a company that would set the right expectations for us, I wouldn't have had to be out at lunch every single day, hence the putting on, 40, 50 pounds from growing the firm. I wouldn't have to be driving around constantly because you get a referral. It's really hard to say, hey, I only want referrals in Orange County. So I'm taking the surrounding counties to take the money that's coming in, like you really kind of ass backwards your way into a miserable business and a worse life until you get intentional about it.
Got it. And when you say you made $5,000 last, you're talking about top line. You're talking about revenue, not
Oh
profit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. More profit. Five
Yeah. So
thousand dollars
way
less
more
top
profit.
line revenue.
Got it.
Uh,
So this much less profit, this much more revenue, this much more profit.
well, we were definitely not profitable the previous year. That's where I got
Sure.
into the $200,000 on the credit card. So yeah, I mean, it was. I believe there was some profit spending as little as possible on marketing for a year. Um,
Got it.
but I'm still amazed that it was a $5,000 less. I think it was 652 to 647, something like that
Yeah.
difference on year over year gross. Because I remember my accountant being like, "Oh, this is interesting. Like your firm is almost at the exact same number," and I was like, "Yeah, but it's not. But I'm the money going out is way different." So
Yeah, I think there are a couple of lessons that we should pause and think about. One is hit and run marketing doesn't work. Like, don't try anything for a very short time because that will be a waste of money. P.T. Barnum wrote a book on the subject of advertising and published it in 1876. One of the main lessons there is like foolish is the man who runs an ad once and expects results and then never runs it again because it takes a consumer. In 1876, when there were no distractions, there was one paper in town. He's like, it takes 5 to 7 times for that consumer to see the ad, if they're the right consumer, to buy whatever it is that you're selling. And this is arguably like 2017, 2018. If you try something for a couple of months and it doesn't work,
Doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means we gave it very little time. That's lesson one.
Well, and now I
Lesson
have
number
27 times or more because we see on average, what,
yes,
30,000 pieces of marketing a day between ads and
every day.
logos and billboards and
Every single day. Like I'm just looking at my desk from this bottle of Pellegrino to this branded computer to this branded phone to this branded tablet to this branded monitor. Everything is branded to this branded camera, right? These are all marketing messages, right?
yeah.
So yes, so you have to show up quite a bit and or show up when they're looking to be noticed. And the other piece of it is when you do hire a marketing company, make sure that they're measuring what it is that they're doing and reporting back to you the actual meaningful result, not just traffic and not just impressions and not just likes and not just follows and not just conversions, but actual marketing qualified leads, if that's what you're paying them for, which you should probably, especially at the beginning, only pay for performance marketing to get the right leads. So great lessons there. Okay, so what happens after that?
Oh man, what happens so much. I go from reading Florida Law Weekly and staying on top of every single criminal case to reading, you know, Jim Collins and E-Myth and all these great traction and like learning business things. And they're like, there's this thing called systems, there's this thing called processes. And then a buddy of mine, Greg Eisenberg, who's so like I won UCF 30 under 30 one year. He won the next year. My wife was in Tiger Bay. It's a bipartisan political group. Greg was the executive director, and he worked at a bunch of marketing companies. I was like, Greg, this can't be a scam. It has to be me, right? Like marketing can't be a scam. And so Greg asked me, these hard-hitting questions like, what kind of cases do you actually want? What clients do you want to work with? What's a legitimate budget that you can design a real worthwhile marketing campaign around? And I didn't have any of the answers because nobody had asked me those at that time. And so my mind just blown, like, oh my God, it's a business. You can be a boss, you can be a marketer, you can have systems. You don't just have to be a great attorney. You have to have all of this stuff in place. And thankfully I now had the time to do it because yes, I had a kid, but I was cutting down my cases as quickly as possible. So I wasn't driving to 2 or 3 different courthouses a day, and I could actually sit there while my kid was napping and read or listen to some business book or write a system out and send it to people and check it and do all these things.
Mm-hmm. So becoming a father actually forced you to reevaluate the way that you approach business.
Yes, because there's no way, like, my kid would never have saw me, and when he would have seen me, I would have been miserable otherwise. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, this is not sustainable. This is not the life I want to live.
Okay. So aside from reading the books, obviously, and becoming the CEO, what was the transition journey like from practicing attorney and being the go-to, the Bullseye org chart where all problems came at you? Like, what was the transition like?
It was slow, but consistent. I wish I could tell you we had somebody hire us for $1 million. We could actually focus on this. It wasn't. It was like, all right, if I don't take the next case that comes in and instead send it to one of the other attorneys, then the 5 hours I think that case would take, I can write out a system for intake. And now I can pass that on to the 14 other people at the company and say, like, all right, you're going to be in charge of the phones first. You're going to be the backup on the phones. You're going to book them with me first, Heather next, the other attorneys after that. We're going to go through these things. Like, it was just amazing to me to see the scalability we had of me designing a system, but then actually having other people be able to implement it. Like, that's where you get scalability. Every individual person is not scalable, but a system that multiple people can execute on, you can infinitely, you could scale up to 8 or 9 billion people. And now, with AI and automation, you can infinitely scale so many systems.
100%. How did you approach marketing? And you made a transition from criminal defense to personal injury. Was that around that time or did that come later?
That would have been a little bit later. So we had transitioned to PI a decent amount of time before COVID, but at the point where we were ready to get rid of criminal defense was like the 8 weeks that nobody drove. So I would say we made a lot of these changes in end of 17, beginning of 18, got into PI, end of 18 into well, maybe more mid 19 into early 20, and then took it in the teeth for the first couple months of COVID until,
Nobody's driving.
nobody's driving. And court was closed.
I remember.
Court was closed for civil cases for years. So.
How'd you feel around that time, like April, May of 2020?
That's a really good question. I felt afraid, but I realized at the end of the day, like, everybody else was going to lose their job before I was. And so I tried to utilize, but like, you laugh, but I tried to utilize that for their benefit. Like, I've never been more honest. I was like, look, I know my banker through BNI. I saw him, every week for 3 years. He told me we were the first PPP application in. So as soon as I hear back from him that that's been approved from his branch, right? Everybody's good for 2 months. I will tell you the minute I hear, I'm not cutting any of y'all's pay. If I have to, we'll have that conversation. I'm cutting my pay first. Like, I was so honest with everybody, which was awesome because I think a lot of business owners weren't. And then when you had like the quiet quitting and all that stuff a year or so later, I didn't have that because I treated my employees great. Like, the people who left during COVID, they went to go work with their spouse at their firm. One of them left for law school in the middle of it. Like, it wasn't a situation where we canned everybody and then try to figure out why nobody wanted to help us. Mm-hmm. Now that the economy had turned around a little bit, it was a thing where we were all in this together, and I was going to put everybody first as long as I could. And thankfully it worked out.
Yeah. It's a great point. Well, what was the path to recovery during COVID? How did your law firm bounce? How did you start getting new business? Because I know that systems are what rules your world now.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
So we've always been very referral-based. Obviously, like, there weren't as many of those events. So I had a podcast for a while to interview a lot of referral sources. My marketing director, like, literally in a week, took it online. We got on every single day for the first 3 months of COVID. Once it was started, we were on Facebook Live. We interviewed every business owner we possibly could, all of our referral sources. Are you open? What are you doing differently? There was one lady on who ran an animal kennel, and so, like, nobody was going on vacation. Nobody was kenneling their pets. Everybody was at home. So she started doing these, like, online Zoom courses for, like, training your dog, or doing there was one she had them do, like, they came up with like, created homemade dog treats or something like that, and had everybody on Zoom with all the dogs, and just watching how everybody pivoted. It was awesome. And then we got a ton of exposure from that because we were doing this virtually from the house, from remote, when Zoom was not as common as it currently is, doing that. And then I remember my receptionist, she's the one who left for law school. She learned Canva in like 2 weeks and started making all the thumbnails, all the welcome things, all the takeaways, all the quotes from it. And I was just like, this is awesome. Like, we're all pivoting. Like, we all know that we are in this, as crummy as it is. Like, we're going to make it go. And I'm so thankful to everybody else at the team who just kept pounding away as much as we could.
Was your podcast about law? Was it about personal injury or criminal defense, or was it about these local businesses dealing with COVID the best they could?
Yeah, I mean, so we had, I'm trying to think of, I've gone through a couple of different podcasts. I think at that point we had either Let's Get Up to Business or we had the Oh No Show. So we were doing, I had some business law attorneys for a while, and so I don't know if it was that focused, or we had a show about Orlando, and we just had people talk about favorite restaurants, favorite events. So one of those two shows, we just interviewed every business owner we could, and went instead of once a week or once every 2 weeks, we went every single day for 3 months and just got out there and made it happen.
That gave you a ton of exposure, obviously. What did that result in?
It resulted in our firm existing longer than I thought it would, for nobody driving and no court being open. So it was super helpful. But first of all, I think every business owner who wants to do any sort of marketing should have a podcast. There is no easier way to create more content in an hour. Get on with a guest, ask them questions. I can talk forever. Sasha's got these phenomenal questions and making me rethink through all this stuff. And then what I did at the end is I asked all my guests, hey, who else would be a good guest? And so they started tagging their friends. They started, recommending other people, because we're going every single day. Like, whatever we did, almost 90 maybe it was every work day. So maybe we did 60, 65 episodes in 3 months, and like I didn't have that many referral sources. So I started connecting with them and getting other people on and talking through. So a lot of people ended up sending us business, not the next day, not the next month, but 6 months later, when the world was a little bit more normal and people were driving again and they heard from their neighbor that they got into an accident, they sent them our way.
That's awesome. There is another person who I had this on this podcast, Elise Bowie. Her episode was published early July of 2025. Her business grew about 400% during COVID, like in a little over a year span, because she just took it to the airwaves and started talking about family law and non-family law things. And she just had a lot of people on the podcast, and a lot of people were like locked in their homes. There were a lot of conflicts. Like I have friends who travel for work or used to travel for work before COVID. And then during COVID, they would be locked in with their spouse, who they have not spent like a whole week with for the previous 20 years, unless they were on vacation. But all of a sudden, they were locked in the house. So her show helped her really, really significantly grow your business in like 12, 18 months. So I've heard this story before.
And my favorite Elise Bowie story, I don't know if it's still true, but at one point she had a physical office, and I think the firm had that office for like 2 years at the time. She had never been to her own physical office. I don't know if that's still true. That's true. Talk about being a phenomenal business owner. You can have 30 something people working for you. They can get together, and then you can bring them out to your house or let them borrow the firm RV or something like that, instead of having to sit in the office every day.
Yeah, Elise has great systems in place. Speaking of systems, she has great systems in place. Her one home is in the Pacific Northwest. Another one is in
New Orleans,
Louisiana, New Orleans. Thank you. Yeah. So when I interviewed her on this podcast, it was about 3 months ago. She told me that I don't really need to go to the office, despite having so many people working there, because why? We don't need to have an office, really. The systems rule their world, and the systems are really good, and the systems are really employee focused, and the systems are really client centric, and everybody's happy. You just don't need to be there all the time or ever. Truth be told, so I have close to 100 employees across 4 different offices. My partner likes to go to the office a little more frequently than I do, but I think in the last 12 months I've been to our office 3 times. Why?
And of those 100 employees, I'd be interested to know how many of them appreciate that you're not in the office every day, but know that they have the right support from you.
They see me almost every day. We have this huge group huddle.
Yeah.
Every day. It started during COVID, because pre-COVID, all of us went to the office. I lived in Chicago at the time. I would drive 1.5 hours each way to my office. And during COVID, we're all like, oh, we can't go to the office, so we're going to do this remotely. And my partner was brilliant enough. He's like, listen, just because we're doing it remotely, it doesn't mean that we should never see each other.
Right.
Every day at 1:30 p.m. Central Time, let's do a 15-minute huddle where everyone who can shows up. So we have a whole bunch of people on the screen, and we just shoot shit. It doesn't have to be about work. We get to see each other once a day for 15 minutes. It's a great practice. It keeps us united, although physically, we're all dispersed across the continent. So it's a great system to have. Absolutely.
Well, are you familiar with self-determination theory?
I'm not. I've never heard that one before.
So I don't even know what this is specifically. I think it's these are the 3 characteristics of the happiest employees. It might be the most productive, whatever the caveat is. So in essence, employees want 3 things. They want to feel supported. They want the ability to do a good job in their role. They want to know that what they're doing has to impact the larger goal, and they want the autonomy to get their stuff done. And so how do you support your employees without micromanaging them? And how do they know that that they play a role in the larger structure? So if you have a 100-person huddle and you're not in the office staring over their shoulder, they can interact with everybody to see the interconnectedness. They can report on their numbers and have the support from you and whomever else to get it done without being micromanaged like children. That is the perfect way to execute self-determination theory.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am going to be mindful of that now. I always try to get out of my employees' way, especially those who have been here for some time. They know what they're doing. They've proven that they know what they're doing. Sometimes they come and they're like, I'm working on this thing. You assigned us the project. Check if I'm doing this right. And I'm like, how the hell do I know? I don't know. I've never done this before. Let me know when it's done and let me know how it worked out.
Yeah. Listen, I hate if somebody else can do it 80% as well, you should delegate it, because I promise you I've delegated things to people that did it 120% better than I could have done it. Like this is not a how unimportant is this thing. It's how do you find somebody that's better at it than you, that can make more reps, that has more patience, that has more knowledge. It's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things that you mentioned before we hit the record button is that you had to get out of the way and do things differently. And you've transitioned out of practicing law. That was one of the things that you did. You became truly a CEO and CMO of your law firm. Your wife became the managing partner, which is in corporate world, we would call it COO, Chief Operating Officer, because she's really in charge of the operations, producing the service that your law firm offers. And you have other people who are also managing the law firm and making sure that it's a wonderful place to be in. How many people do you have now?
Depends upon the time. Anywhere from like in terms of at the firm currently.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you meant like during the purpose of the story. So
No. So today, August 27th, 2025.
Gotcha. So I would say the like we peaked at like 15 or 16. We got our way all the way down to 7 or 8 at some times. Now it's closer to 25 people.
Got it. Making more money now than ever before, I assume?
Oh, I mean, dude, there were years with 16 people where I made no money. So yes, definitely.
Lost money because you had to borrow money.
Completely. Yeah.
Cool. What are the systems that are running? And, I want to specifically focus on marketing for a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Because before we hit the record button, I noticed that your website, beautiful aesthetically, but it's not really ranking in search. And you said that that's by design. I'm like, explain that, because it's such a powerful thing. And by the way, again, disclosure, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what my company does, I'm a search marketer. And when I heard Jordan say, like, that's by design, I was fascinated by it. And I love the reason why he's not focused on search marketing for his website.
Yeah. So, look, in that moment of how are we going to change the future of their firm, we looked at what was working. And what was working were referrals. Like the cases that came in because somebody talked to another lawyer, talked to their parent, talked to somebody that they trusted, and they sent them over. Those are the people we like the best. And not having a consistent intake system, we closed them at a higher rate, so I didn't have to build a whole follow-up campaign and sequence and whatnot, because most of them came in wanting me. And so we continue to focus, I don't want to say 100%, but close to it, on referrals. And so for me, my website, for the most part, is somebody was told to hire Jordan Ostroff or to hire Driven Law. I want them to find 165 great 5-star reviews. I want them to see a very nice website when they look for us. I don't need it to show up randomly, because I don't want the tire kickers, or I should say I don't have the staff in place to properly handle 100 leads that we're going to close at a 25% rate. I have the staff in place to handle 15 or 20 leads that we're going to close 95% of. And so as we got more intentional about designing our firm, that became something where we have a nice looking website, but we're not spending $10,000, $20,000 a month on SEO, which is what it would take to rank for PI in Orlando. I mean, you would know better than me.
Yeah. But the main reason that you told me before we hit the record button is that you are in an ultra competitive environment. Like your geo market, Orlando, Morgan & Morgan has incredibly strong presence. There are a few major law firms that spend millions of dollars a year on their SEO. And I mean, when they say millions, I mean millions.
Yeah.
It's part of, so John Morgan's annual marketing budget is 160 million. There's a substantial percentage of that goes to his website ranking across multiple markets. He spends this much money on ranking there. Could you compete with him? You could. But it would be a very substantial investment. So you, by design, chose to go other routes to generate or to attract enough business to support 25-person law firm. Aside from referrals, and I believe that you're doing referrals systematically because you have generated those referral relationships. You do reach out, you do stay connected with people, right?
I do. It's a really tough life, Sasha. Going to lunch with your friends, playing golf with them,
No.
Getting pickleball games going. It's a sacrifice that I make every day.
Yeah, not every day because you only work 3 days a week, right?
Well, okay, sure.
So 3 days a week, huge sacrifices, playing golf, having lunches, etc. All right. So what else do you do to drive business, if anything, aside from these referrals that are very proactive?
So we reinvest in our clients a ton. So we put on, most years we put on 2 events. We do a Cinco de Mayo party because my birthday's on Cinco de Mayo. We do a Friendsgiving event right before Thanksgiving. We don't do a Christmas party because I think those are overplayed, or a holiday party.
Yep. Everybody's got those.
So yeah, and we invite a lot of clients to those. Now I will tell you, 99% of our clients do not show up. They do not attend. But I like to think the invite makes them think of us and makes them know that we care.
Sure.
And then when we have clients, we're looking for a food vendor. Who of our clients work at a restaurant, own their own food truck? We're looking for new photographs. Which of our clients are a photographer? So we reinvest in our clients a ton from that perspective. Because look, if I want you to refer me, I want to be able to be comfortable referring you. And so we really try to build these relationships where we stay in touch, where we provide value and services to them. Sometimes it's, bringing them as a guest to an event. Sometimes it's meeting them, introducing them to somebody else who can help them. Sometimes it's utilizing their services. Like that goes much farther than the firm that says they care about their clients, but doesn't spend a dime reinvesting in them. And then the other thing is like our staff generates a decent chunk of business from their family and their friends because I hope they genuinely like working here. So they seem to talk about work in a positive way. They seem to generate business from that. And so, if every one of your staff members generated 1 case and your average case value is $10,000 to the firm for the case, or even $5,000, and you have 10 people, it's $50,000 in your pocket or in the firm's coffers just from having better office culture.
Sure. It's really interesting. Some time ago, I had a referral system expert on this podcast, and he said that the most important thing that you got to do is stay in touch. So you have multiple touch points with your clients, past clients, and other attorneys who are in place in good position to refer business to you, and thus you can operate a 25-person law firm just off of referrals. There's nothing else that you do. Referrals, events, staying in touch with people, utilizing their businesses when you can. That's the whole system.
So I kind of want to push back on what he says a little bit. The best thing that you can do is genuinely care about other humans, because that's going to help. Because I think everybody has that friend who messages them every 2 weeks and is like, how are you? What's new? Here's my latest podcast. We all know those people that quote unquote were told to stay in touch. But when you genuinely care, that's where I see it going really well for referral-based firms. And to be fair, if you are the world's most introverted introvert and you don't want to talk to other people every day, don't be a referral-based firm. Find the money to invest in really good digital marketing. Do some SEO, buy some leads, do pay-per-click, local service ads, whatever. I like other humans. It brings me much joy to spend time doing fun things with fun people. So it's really easy for me to generate referrals because I look forward to it. If you're going to dread every networking meeting, you're not going to be successful.
100%. Got to do whatever makes you happy, for sure. And when it pays your bills, especially.
Yeah.
Awesome. What other systems have you developed in your law firm?
Oh man, listen. So my favorite example is the airlines, right? So if you are a pilot, there's a checklist for everything. There's the 100%. Pre-flight checklist. There's the de-icing checklist. There's this. There's that. But when 2 engines go out, Sully takes over and lands that thing in the Hudson River safely. So I will sit here and tell you I probably have every system we need.
He had a checklist for that.
What?
I kid you not. He had a checklist for that. When both engines go out,
yeah,
there's a book about this thick in the cockpit. He grabbed the book and he checked with the checklist what to do when both engines go out.
All right. Well, then I take it back. It's not the best.
It's not in the movie.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely, there's a book called Checklist Manifesto,
Yeah.
and he writes about that, and it's part of the story that he grabbed the book, checked the checklist, followed the checklist. He just followed the procedure. Not only did he have 30 something years of experience, but he also followed the checklist.
There we go. All right. Well, then this
Yeah.
isn't a good example. Then I take it back.
Yeah.
I would say we have every system that covers 85 to 90% of the cases, but then my team knows when to throw all the systems out and just be human and do the right thing for the client and be
Sure.
present in the moment and address it, because it's not worth creating a system that's going to happen once. It's worth empowering people to handle that one situation correctly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and said so beautifully. I'm processing that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are a little down the checklist, and but being human in some situations and just not worrying about the checklist, that just makes so much sense. So you got to the point where you have this 25 person law firm. You're doing really well. You're working 3 days a week, and now you write a book and you start coaching other lawyers. I love the title of your book. Love your law firm. Why'd you decide to write it?
It actually started out as therapy of me writing how much I hated my firm. But thankfully, over, I think, like 7 years of writing terrible thoughts about how I was going to quit this whole thing, we ended up on the right side of it. My wife, my son, and I did a 13-month cross-country road trip in the middle of COVID while the firm had some of its best years. And I really just wanted to help more people create that really enjoyable family moment, that law firm they didn't want to flee. And so, I say it started out as my therapy and ended with what I hope to actually help other people through their own bad moments.
I'm sure you've heard some bad moment stories.
To be honest, unfortunately in the legal industry, it's better to hear the story, because the amount of attorneys I know that either abandoned their practice and just wandered off into the middle of nowhere, leaving clients in the wind, or unfortunately died by suicide, heart attack, or stroke at 40 sitting at a desk is a lot more than the ones that I have seen nicely retire to a life of, golf and leisure.
Yeah. Do you think that a very high percentage of lawyers who start their own law firms know very little about operating a business? They just catch that entrepreneurial bug, as I think E-Myth author Michael Gerber talks about it, or having entrepreneurial thralls. I think that's how he actually referred to it, where you're like, I'm going to start my own law firm, but you know very little about business. And now you're between two major things, practicing law and practicing business. And you tend to gravitate to the thing that you know well. But practicing business is what you should be doing once you start your own law firm, not actually practicing law. And I think because of this gravitational pull that's like tearing you apart, like pulling you into two different opposite directions, really, because these two things are very different. Do you think that a lot of that unhappiness, I won't call it misery, but unhappiness, do you think a lot of it just comes from that?
No. Here's my issue. I think almost every other industry is consolidating more. Like, I don't know how many doctors actually have their own practice. They are all like admitted to a hospital and have some resources that way.
Fewer every day.
Yeah. Well, so like lawyers don't have that. And so I think most people open their own law firm because either they can't find a job or they hate everybody they've worked for in the past. Like they work for people like I used to be. And so I think if we had fewer law firms, but we had more people actually managing law firms and running law firms, we'd be better off. Like, if you're listening to this podcast and you really want to be an attorney, I hope you don't own your practice. I hope you go find somebody else's practice that allows you to be a phenomenal attorney and pays you properly and lets you have the right boundaries. Because if you're going to be the great attorney for your own firm, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah, you really don't. You're either going to be a great CEO or CMO or some sort of a C, an executive, or you're going to be a great lawyer. But for most lawyers, you cannot pull off both things unless you build out an org chart where other people do the executive functions for you and you just practice law, but you also happen to own a chunk or the whole thing of your law firm,
Right.
which is rare.
I have so many of my coaching clients, they're mad at themselves because they think they're a huge failure. But when we sit down, they're trying to do 4 full-time jobs in like 15 hours apiece. You know, they're trying to be a lawyer and they're trying to be the marketer and they're doing sales and they want to be the CEO. That's 4
Doesn't work.
40-hour-a-week jobs. You don't have 100.
Yeah.
There are 168 hours in a week. You're not going to spend 160 of them actually working. So even if you're going to work 60 or 70 hours a week, you can't even do 2 full-time jobs. So don't beat yourself up for not being capable of working an amount of hours that don't actually exist. You know, create the job you really want, have your firm support your job, and go from there. Like, that's how you find happiness.
What do you tell someone who is already operating a law firm and practice law and find themselves unhappy where they are today?
Change something. Listen, this is what I hate. There are a lot of really good online groups for attorneys, but every now and then I will see somebody say, like, I'm really thinking of closing my firm. I don't like the ebbs and flows. I don't like this. And then 1,000 people in that group will be like, don't be a failure. Keep your firm going. You know, you're 3 feet from gold. Like, just stay at it. And I just want to be like, that's not the right answer for everybody. It's not. Because I talk to all of my lawyer friends who love running businesses and they struggle to find attorneys. I talk to a bunch of attorneys and they hate running their own firm. I'm like, just connect, just put it together, figure it out, you know? Like, to me, failure is doing the same thing for 20 years and being miserable the entire time. Failure is not closing down your firm because you gave it a good try and you hate it. That's not failure.
Agreed. There's no reason to forever be stuck in something that you just don't like. And by the way, I want to add this. So I've been operating businesses, my own business, for 24 years now. I have consulted other business owners after I sold my first business, sold it very well. It was a good exit. And what I found was that overwhelming majority of guys and gals who started their own business, they had the trade down. Like, they knew what to do, what that business delivered, the service or the product that the business delivered. Whether it was an attorney, a dentist, a plumber, an HVAC guy, it didn't matter. Like an accountant, they had the skills to deliver the service. They didn't have the skills to build the business. And most never develop those skills because that's not what they actually want to do. It's not. And I think that is probably one of the main reasons why 92% of all small businesses, and I'm sure that applies to law firms, never reach $1 million in revenue. And by the way, I've had 4 businesses now that have passed $1 million threshold. When you operate $1 million business, like $1 million in revenue, not in profit, your hair's on fire. Your life is not going well. Like, this is a terrible spot to find yourself in. Life is difficult at $1 million. It's a little bit easier at 2. It gets quite a bit easier at 3, and you can really be like, I think I kind of sort of have made it by 5, 6, 7 million because you have such an org chart built out, so many people in support and maybe like executive roles that you do not wear 7 hats. You're not responsible for marketing, selling, delivering the service, HR, and leadership. And you're now maybe responsible for 1 or 2 things. So you actually have the time to think and maybe tell people what needs to be done, not how to do it, but what needs to be done in order to execute on your vision, help you reach your goals, etc.
So can I tell you my favorite quote along those lines?
Yeah.
I think it was Alex Hormozy, it might have been Dan Martell, or they might be referencing somebody else. It's like, if you want to be a billionaire, you have to be okay with multi-million-dollar problems. And I think, and I don't want to be a billionaire. I'm not that, whatever word you want to include, because I don't want to have multi-million-dollar problems. You know, I'm okay being a millionaire and have multi-$10,000 to $100,000 problems. But like, really thinking about it from that perspective, for me, drastically changed what I wanted, because I had to figure out what level of issue I was willing to have. Like, I can't imagine being Elon Musk and having $100 million lawsuits left and right and this and that and the other, even when things are going well. Like, I can't fathom that. So that's not something that is an option for me.
I am with you. I read the book Power Play, and it's a story of Tesla, not Elon himself, but story of Tesla. But obviously, he's so intertwined into the story. And when you read the book, you understand that most normal humans would have had multiple heart attacks and died multiple ways along his journey. Like, it was that hard. It was just from one implosion to another implosion to another. Like, the problems that man had to solve were, for most humans, would be like absolutely impossible to just live through. Like, I would have quit. I would have quit every single year of those 18 years multiple times or died at the desk. My blood pressure went up as I read the book.
So, have you read the biography? I think Walter Isaacson wrote it, the Elon Musk biography.
Years ago, listen to the audiobook. Yes.
So, for anybody else, like, if we haven't belabored this point enough, you have to read or listen to this biography, because the way he does it is he does it by company by year. And so he'll do this whole chapter and you're like, this is everything that he had to do for Tesla in this year. And then he's like, and now for SpaceX. And you're just like, how could you have these things going on at the same, and now for the Boring Company, and you're just like, oh my God. So say what you will about Elon, but I'm with Sasha on, I would have been dead a long time ago with the level of complexity and problems. And look, many of them I'm sure are self-caused, but I've also self-caused a lot of my own problems.
Don't we all? We do. Jordan, what's the most important advice you would have given yourself 10 years ago from the standpoint of where you are today?
How long do we have? No, to be honest, if I could go back in time, I would just want to tell myself it gets better when you make changes to make it better. That's probably it. I could get more specific with myself, but at least I'd like to leave myself with that info.
That's very Yoda-ish.
Very what?
Yoda-ish.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because it's not specific.
Well,
it gets better as you make changes to make it better. Okay.
Yeah. We started this with, you don't rise to level goals, you fall to level your systems.
Yes.
Like, nothing's going to change unless you change something. So knowing where I'm at now, I'd love to let myself in the past know, hey, it gets better, but understand, like, it took me making changes for the better to make it get better. And, I could sit here and give myself the exact roadmap, but honestly, I mean, you asked me some questions that I had to think through the answer. So I don't even know I could give myself the roadmap. At least if I gave myself that one sentence, I could remember it enough to get myself through the down moments.
Fascinating. Thanks, Jordan. If someone wants to connect with you, and this is a little pitch for your coaching business, because you are a happy guy. My God, what's today? Wednesday afternoon, you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt, you're working 3 days a week, wearing yourself down, having lunches and playing golf with your buddies and getting plenty of referral business. If someone wants some of what you're having and feel happier and possibly at some point love the law firm that they own, how do they connect with you? What's the best way?
Sure. I would say the best way is probably to follow me on Facebook. I think there's only 2 Jordan Ostroffs in the world. There's this like really good salesperson out of Boston who I get a lot of job offers for. I'm not him. And then there's me. So I had a client who was like, when I first met you, I thought you were completely full of shit. And then I realized you were being honest. So like, if you follow me on Facebook, you will get honest me. And if that's your vibe, reach out. And if it's not your vibe, totally fine.
Awesome. There's also a newsletter subscription that you offer right on your website.
Yeah. So we have Jordan O in the Know. Goes out every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. I try to get it as close to the weekend so you would read it with the opportunity to then hopefully enjoy the next 48 hours before you go back to work on Monday. And then book, Love Your Law Firm, on Amazon bestseller.
There you go. Jordan Ostroff, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun for me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was great. You asked I've gone on a lot of podcasts. You asked a lot of questions I've never been asked before that were really helpful for me to think through my own answer to give you an answer.
Happy to hear. We may do part 2 like a year from now, and I'll come up with some other questions. Badger you with those. Thanks, Jordan. This was great.